why humanity keeps returning to the red planet. We left Mars behind decades ago, yet it never stopped pulling us back. Every time we turned away, something brought our attention rushing toward it again. A signal, a discovery, or a fear we could not shake. That persistent gravitational pull operates not through physics, but through psychology, drawing humanity toward a world that promises nothing yet demands everything. To understand why humanity keeps returning to Mars, we need to look beyond rockets and technology. Mars matters today because it represents an unresolved question about our future. When Earth feels crowded, unstable, or uncertain, Mars re-enters the conversation, not as a solution, but as a symbol of possibility. The same pressures driving modern society are quietly shaping this obsession again. Economic strain, environmental degradation, and geopolitical tension all feed the narrative that somewhere else might offer relief. At first, Mars was visited out of curiosity. Early missions were brief encounters. Flybys, photographs, fragments of data sent back across space. We looked, recorded, and moved on. But Mars lingered in scientific memory. Each image revealed a planet that once resembled Earth more than anyone expected. Valleys carved by flowing water. Polar ice caps that grew and shrank. A climate that changed over time. These observations planted seeds of fascination that would germinate across generations. As the decades passed, our reasons for returning evolved. Mars became a puzzle that refused to stay solved. Every mission answered one question and uncovered several more. The planet's surface held layers of time, each one preserving a different era of planetary history. Mars was not static. It had transformed, and transformation invites comparison. Scientists found themselves studying not just another world, but a possible version of Earth's future. Then came a shift in perspective. Mars stopped being only about discovery and started becoming about survival. Climate models improved. Earth systems showed strain. Discussions about long-term human resilience moved from theory to urgency. In that context, Mars felt closer than ever, not physically, but psychologically. The distance between the two planets collapsed whenever headlines warned of environmental tipping points. The red planet became a canvas for human imagination once again. Some saw refuge, others saw warning. Engineers saw challenges. Philosophers saw consequences. Mars absorbed every projection because it offered distance without irrelevance. Far enough to feel new, familiar enough to feel personal. That combination proved irresistible to a species perpetually caught between curiosity and anxiety. And so we returned, again and again, each mission less about Mars itself, and more about what it reveals about us. Our return to Mars was never driven by a single motive. It was shaped by layers of fear, hope, and unanswered questions. Each generation found a new reason to go back, even when the risks were clear. The cumulative weight of those motivations created momentum that no single setback could halt. As robotic explorers expanded their reach, Mars began telling its story in fragments. Chemical traces hinted at ancient water cycles. Rock formations suggested long-gone lakes. Seasonal changes revealed an active, evolving planet, not a frozen relic. These discoveries made Mars feel unfinished, as if it still had something left to say. The planet became a narrator of its own history, speaking through minerals and shadows. But beneath the excitement, a deeper tension formed. Mars forced humanity to confront limits. Every mission depended on precision. One error meant silence. Communication delays turned control into trust. Mars demanded patience in a world accustomed to immediacy. That challenge became part of its appeal. In an age of instant gratification, Mars imposed discipline. Returning to Mars also became a test of endurance. Budgets fluctuated. Political priorities shifted. Programs were canceled, revived, and reimagined. Yet Mars survived every pause. It remained distant, unchanged, waiting. Unlike Earth, it did not react to our indecision. It simply existed. That permanence offers strange comfort, a fixed point against which progress could be measured. Over time, Mars transformed into a measuring stick for progress. Each successful landing proved technological growth. Each failure exposed vulnerability. Mars did not reward ambition easily. It required humility disguised as innovation. The planet became a teacher that graded harshly but fairly. At the same time, public narratives grew louder. Mars was framed as destiny, a place humanity was meant to reach. Stories blurred the line between exploration and entitlement. The planet became a symbol of continuity, a way to believe that human progress would never truly end. That narrative served psychological needs as much as scientific ones. But that belief carried weight. Returning to Mars repeatedly meant acknowledging something else. That Earth alone no longer felt sufficient in our long-term imagination. Mars became a response to uncertainty, not a resolution of it. The planet offered no guarantees, only the illusion that forward motion equals safety. And as missions stacked upon missions, one truth became harder to ignore. We were not chasing Mars for answers about the universe. We were chasing for answers about ourselves. The conflict beneath our return to Mars was never about distance or danger. It was about contradiction. We studied Mars as a dead world while dreaming of making it alive again. We treated it as a warning while marketing it as a promise. Those opposing impulses created friction that no amount of engineering could resolve. As plans for human missions accelerated, the gap between vision and reality widened. Engineers mapped habitats, life support systems, and supply chains stretching millions of kilometers. Every calculation revealed the same truth. Mars would not tolerate mistakes. Survival there would be artificial, fragile, and unforgiving. One broken system could end everything. The margin between success and catastrophe approached zero. Yet the idea of Mars as an escape grew stronger. Environmental stress, political instability, and resource anxiety on Earth fed the narrative. Mars became framed as a second chance rather than a second responsibility. This shift marked a turning point. Exploration turned into projection. The planet became a screen onto which humanity cast its hopes without fully examining its fears. Behind the scenes, scientists raised concerns. Introducing Earth life to Mars could erase evidence of ancient organisms forever. Mining and construction could permanently alter a pristine scientific record. Mars was not empty space. It was an archive billions of years old. Once disturbed, it could never be restored. That irreversibility demanded caution that ambition often overlooked. This created an ethical standstill. To learn from Mars, it must remain untouched. To live on Mars, it must be changed. Both paths carried irreversible consequences, and humanity stood directly between them. The decision could not be postponed indefinitely, yet rushing it invited regret. At the same time, Mars exposed our dependency on control. On Earth, nature absorbs our errors. On Mars, nothing does. There is no margin, no recovery window, no forgiveness. Mars demanded perfection from an imperfect species. That demand illuminated flaws that remained invisible in more forgiving environments. This realization quietly undermined the fantasy. Returning to Mars was no longer just about going farther. It was about confronting whether our habits could survive in a place that amplifies every flaw. The planet became a mirror that reflected not just physical constraints, but behavioral ones. Mars did not challenge our technology most. It challenged our behavior. And that was a conflict we were least prepared to face. Mars keeps drawing us back because it refuses to give simple answers. It sits at the edge of our reach, close enough to touch, far enough to resist. And in that tension, it reveals something uncomfortable about human ambition. We pursue what we cannot fully grasp, driven by impulses that logic alone cannot explain. The climax of the story is not a launch or a landing. It is the realization that returning to Mars is not about progress alone. It is about avoidance, about the hope that distance can solve problems discipline has not. Mars exposes that illusion with brutal clarity. Every survival plan there depends on systems we struggle to maintain here. The planet forces honesty upon a species prone to self-deception. In the end, Mars does not offer salvation. It offers perspective, a reminder that resilience is built before escape becomes necessary, that sustainability is learned, not outsourced, and that running forward without reflection only repeats the same cycle on a colder stage. The lessons Mars teaches require implementation on Earth before they can matter anywhere else. Mars will remain where it is, silent, patient, unchanged by our debate. The real question is whether we will keep returning to it for the wrong reasons, or finally listen to what has been showing us all along. The answer will determine not just the future of exploration, but the future of the explorers themselves. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future. Why?